Hello everyone, back for another camp again, out with my son again. We've come to a bit of a different place this time. Last few's been Northumberland and North Yorkshire. We've come to the Lake District now, and I'm sure some people can guess roughly where we are. I haven't got my mic plugged in, so hopefully the sound's alright on this. But yeah, so this is our as we've got set up there. Niall is in the Wild Country Helm 1 that he's just acquired. He's making himself a brew, I think. And I'm in the new Hilleberg Nallo 2. All set up there, facing into the wind. Not much wind to talk of, a little bit. It's picked up a bit from earlier, but yeah, the scenery is outstanding. The weather's really nice. A little bit of a bite, a little bit of a nip in the wind, but as I say, not a great deal of wind, and a few clouds in the sky, but nothing looking particularly menacing. So hopefully it stays that way. We'll have a good night's camp. I'll come back to you in a bit. So that's the view out the door of the Nallo tonight. Absolutely stunning. Niall is out in the Wild Country Helm 1. He's just recently acquired that, so he's giving that a shout tonight. There's a bunch of people still dotting about. Not as many. I was expecting there to be more because the weather's been so nice. We've got somebody else camping over there who I don't know. Woman and a young son, I think it is. And there's another couple of guys that way. We got talking to earlier, so they're pitched up. And I think there's somebody else turned up as well. So there's a few, but see, the view is absolutely breathtaking, like. Yeah, really nice out there. So yeah, hopefully we might get a nice sunrise in the morning. Fingers crossed. Or possibly even a nice sunset tonight. We shall see. So settled down in the tent. Got me mattress blown up, all my gears sorted. I've had my tea, and just enjoying the space, to be honest. I was going to do a walk around the tent, but I was too busy enjoying the sunset. It's the first one that I've seen for months now, like decent sunset, nice sort of like fire in the sky type thing, because the weather's been so bad for so long now. It's really nice to actually get out in nice weather, seeing a sunset again, which is always nice. So yeah, so I'm really happy with the tent. The living space in this is just huge, and for a tent that it's a two-man, it's a true two-man. The vestibule is massive, the living space is massive. I'm not sat right at the apex of the tent, that's over here, so you know there's more room. The only thing I'm a bit thinking about, it would be help if they put a little clip up there for your light. I might have to tie something onto this here, because this just dangles down a bit low, like for me, but it is what it is. I'll adjust that. Put a little loop on the end of the washing line up here, I think, and then I can hang it directly above the door. I think that would be more useful. So the furore on the social media this week about the Nortent Vern1, that's been interesting watch. Let's get the popcorn out time. So it all kicked off. There was a video last weekend, some guy called Ron, I think, down on Dartmoor, had pitched up, and he pitched up in, I'm going to say 40 mile an hour winds, 40-ish, driving rain, pretty salty conditions to be fair, and as the night wore on the wind got progressively stronger. The end of the, obviously you got the Vern1 has got like a shallow arch from end to end and a steeper arch in the middle with the 3-pole system they've got, and one of the ends of the tent literally just folded in like this. It just kept collapsing in like this, and it was collapsing in pretty badly, to be fair. Ultimately the guy decided to bail. He decided to strike camp and head back home because the weather was getting worse and the bowing on the end of the tent was getting more severe. As he was leaving the tent to start packing the tent away, the centre pole snapped down near to one end, and I think there was a number of reasons for this. I've emailed Nortent to tell them what I think happened, and I think there's a few factors. I don't think it was one single thing, but one of the issues with the Vern1 as I see it is the guy lines on the end of the tent are too short, so you're pulling down over rather than out, and because you're pulling down and the guy lines are kind of coming like this and the wind's hitting here and it's wanting to push the end of the tent in, those guy lines are literally giving you little to nothing in the terms of support outwards, I think. So I think longer guy lines would have actually helped. Would they have fixed the problem? I doubt it, but I do think they would have helped a little bit. I think the design of the tent is such that the arch is not steep enough. If you look at, for example, at well, you can look at a few tents. You look at the Helm 1 or 2, the Wild Country Helm 1 or 2. You look at the Hilleberg Nallo. They've all got a much steeper arch to their poles, and because of that, if you've got an arch like this and the guy lines are pulling out like that, it's hard for this edge to collapse in. Where the Vern's like that, with steeper guy lines, it wants to go in. I think that's a weakness in the design, if you like. So I did say to Nortent, shorten the tent. The tent's longer than it needs to be, realistically. I mean, the interior length is something like, I want to say it's about 240 interior length, which means it's about 255, 260 or something like that on the outer. You can drop that by 20 centimetres easily, and it's still long enough for the taller fellas and ladies. And by dropping it in, like maybe, I don't know, 20 centimetres for argument's sake, you're going to gain a little bit of height in the centre, which is another criticism of the Vern1, that it's a little bit too low in the middle. I've seen that commented on a few times. So you're going to gain that little bit of height, which benefits everyone, and you shorten that length, which doesn't detrimentally affect anyone, and you give yourself a steeper arch structure. That, with the longer guy lines, makes, for me, a more stable tent. Now, I've spoken to a pal who's an engineer and spoke to him about this, and he agreed. You know, when it comes to arches, too much or too little is a bad thing. There's kind of like a sweet spot. And when I showed him pictures of the Vern, he was like, yeah, that's far from being the sweet spot. You can just tell straight away it's too shallow. And that's from a guy who's an engineer, so it's not just me thinking that. You know, somebody who knows a bit more about it than I do is kind of reinforced what I was thinking about that. The other thing is, when you look at the pitching instructions for the Vern1, they have the long poles go over the top of the shorter centre pole. I personally pitch it the other way around. I put the is that right? Aye. I pitch it with the centre pole last, so that goes over the top of the long poles. Because my other thought, and again, this is just my thought, when you've got an arch like that, if there's pressure coming on one side, it has to rise somewhere to allow that to come in. Now, if that centre pole over the top holds that down, it makes it harder for that to rise. which then means that there's more pressure pushing out on this part, and it'll keep it more stable. So I just think if you've got the centre pole set up the way I'm talking, the longer guy lines, and if you can have that steeper arch, I think you might not make it vastly stronger, but I think you'll give it a bit more. I mean, to be fair, the only real reason people are slating the Vern1 now, because it failed in 50 plus miles per hour winds, the reason it's getting slated is because, and ultimately again this is down to Nortent really, they've selected certain YouTubers to promote the Vern1 and the Vern2. Now, some of those guys who've been given the tents for free and they've promoted them, some of them are really balanced and really, they've got good channels, and they give very matter-of-fact opinions about stuff, and they don't sugarcoat stuff, things like that. But some that they've selected are, I don't want to slag anybody off because that's not what I'm about, but some of them don't, I think, paint an accurate picture of what they're reviewing. They paint a picture that I think gets them into the good graces with the companies. You know, I don't think it's honest. And I mean, weeks ago, like I'm talking back, what, February time, end of February, beginning of March, when the Nortent Vern1 first came out. Initially, you know, they were sent out to people, and you could see people were breaking their necks to get reviews out on to YouTube, and that's fine if you're being given it free. And the idea of being given it free is to do a positive review, which I think is a bit disingenuous anyway. These people were breaking their necks to get the videos out, and they're talking about how amazing this tent is, how it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's a Hilleberg solo killer. It's, you know, the solo's in trouble. It's all of this kind of stuff. Fantastical statements, especially bearing in mind they hadn't had that tent out and tested it. They were pitching it in a garden or in wherever they pitched them, in controlled conditions, not out actually camping and making these statements. Now the thing is, the solo's been around for God knows how long. It's proved itself time and time and time again. The Vern is the new kid on the block, if you like, and it hasn't proved itself. So those statements being made of that type, comparing it to the Hilleberg solo in terms of it being a true competitor, being better, the solo's in trouble, that kind of stuff, are an absolute nonsense, utter nonsense. You cannot say that kind of stuff until you've actually tried it, tested it, and seen how it stands up. When I did my original comparison video, I was very, very at pains to stress the fact that, could this be a competitor to the Hilleberg solo? And I said, yes, it could. Time will tell. Okay, so I didn't commit myself to it because I knew I couldn't back it up. I think if you're going to review stuff, especially these bigger channels, I'm small fry, I'm not important in the run of things, but I think if you're going to review stuff and you're going to post these things, I think you've kind of got a moral responsibility to be honest about this stuff and to tell the truth, because there are people out there who don't know any better, who are literally hanging on your every word, especially when you've got thousands and thousands of followers. They're hanging on what you say, and they're going out and buying product based on what you're telling them. And if what you're telling them is utter nonsense, they're buying off like a false advert, if you like, or a false premise. And then they get annoyed when what you've told them turns out not to be the case. And in this situation, what was being said about the Vern1 turned out not to be the case. Now, can the Vern1 be improved? Absolutely. There's a bunch of stuff I think they can do that will improve the tent. There's a lot I like about the tent, to be honest with you. But with any tent, nothing's perfect. I mean, the solo isn't perfect. You know, no tent is. And the thing, this is the beauty of different people's opinions and different people's preferences. So what I might think's perfect, the next guy is going to think's a heap of turd, like, you know, big steaming pile. But and that's the thing, because if we all like the same thing and we all thought the same thing was perfect, there'd only be one tent manufacturer and there'd only be one tent. And that's not the case blatantly. So where does it go from here? So, you know, one of the videos issued a public apology, which, to be honest, I haven't watched it. It turned out not to be. He kind of doubled down on what he was saying about it being a competitor for the solo. So he heaped the blame on the guy whose tent broke. And I don't think it was all his fault. Yes, I think there was faults in the way he pitched it. For example, the side guy lines coming off the tent, he had them, if that's a centre pole, he had the top one running off in one direction and the bottom one running off straight. Well, that's putting like a lateral force on the pole. Did that contribute to the pole snapping? I don't know. It might have done. I mean, he obviously had his reasons for pitching it like that. I personally wouldn't have done. Does that make me right? No, not at all. But I'm curious as to why he did pitch it like that, to be honest with you, because I don't know why you would, but that's possibly a factor, you know. The wind and the weather was absolutely the main factor. Now, where the issue really lies, like I say, I've spoken to Nortent. They came back to my suggestions or information that I gave to them, and they kind of accepted a couple of bits, but then they were sort of dismissive of the other ones. And it's their baby, it's their tent. I get it. They're going to defend it. They want to. Nobody likes to get criticism for something that they've created, I guess. But for me, you create something, you put it out there, you bill it as a true 4-season tent, and it depends on what conditions of 4 season you're putting it in, because 4 seasons in Norway, 4 seasons in America, 4 seasons in the UK, different things. I've seen videos with it under snow loading, and it seems to cope very well with snow loading. But the British weather, and I know other countries say, oh, well, it's pretty much the same here. I don't know, like, where other places I've been, you can get 4 seasons in one day. In the UK, you can get 4 seasons in 10 minutes. It's like, it's so changeable. And the wind can change direction at the drop of a hat, and it can go from 20 mile an hour to 60 mile an hour, then back to 30, then 60 again, then back to 20. It's so changeable here, and it's not just like a constant wind and stuff. You'll get your gusts. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. You know how changeable it is. So for me, yes, it might be a true 4-season tent for Scandinavian conditions, but UK conditions, it's shown that it probably isn't. Now, I know Andrew Park put a suggestion on of using a trekking pole at the end, to the centre guy line, to go across the trekking pole and down, which then lifts that into the tent. Yes, that'll help. Absolutely, it'll help. But why should you have to do that with a 4-season tent? You shouldn't. In my opinion, if you've got to do that to make it stable, it's not a 4-season tent. It's a 3-season tent. And if the Vern1 is a 3-season tent, it's a white elephant, because it's a 3 kilogram 3-season tent. There are way, way lighter, more stable 3-season tents out there for a fraction of the cost even than the Vern1. Like, so to me, if you were buying a 3-season tent, you wouldn't be buying that tent. The only reason you'd buy that tent for 3 seasons is if you just like the look of it, and that's it. It's when it was launched, people were buying it because it was billed as a 4-season tent, and people expect that higher level of strength, stability, and weatherproofness. I know it's not a word, but you know what I mean. It's shown in this situation that it hasn't got that level. Like, there's any amount of tents out there who will do 50 mile an hour, any amount of them. My Nordisk Holland that I've got is a far lighter. I mean, it's literally half the weight. It's way more room inside it. That's wind tunnel tested to like 56 miles per hour, I think. This one I'm sitting in now, Hilleberg Nallo 2. Yes, this is not a million miles away weight-wise when you put the ground sheet in. you know, it's about 2.8, I think. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's vastly bigger inside, like order of magnitude bigger. It has 2 poles instead of 3, and I've seen it countless videos of this standing up to 69 miles per hour. That's a massive chunk more than 50. So, like I say, the Vern1, there's a lot I like about the tent. There really is. A lot of the features that's on there I think are great. And I do think it's still a good tent. I'm not saying it's not a good tent, but it's not what people were saying it was. And that's where the problem lies. People were making big claims that at the point they made those claims, they couldn't possibly have said that with any sort of conviction because they'd not tested it. And so now that it's been tested by a couple of people, a few people have done it now in fairly hefty winds, and it's shown its weaknesses, and that's fine. Like this is how you learn what weaknesses things are, by trying them out. And to me, it's a good thing that this has happened because, well, it's a good thing if Nortent take this information and improve the tent, because that's how things develop, and that's great. If they don't do that, then where do you go from there with that? You know, it's a tricky one. As I say, I mean, one of the things Nortent came back with, which I thought was, I don't know, it happened before with somebody who was involved in the design of the Vern1, the original Vern1, when I was talking about use of ground sheets, and he was like, don't ever need a ground sheet, it doesn't make any difference to anything. If you think you need a ground sheet, that's actually a bit stupid. And the guy actually made a YouTube video of the Vern1 months later, and in that video he talks about why he doesn't use a ground sheet and why anyone who does is stupid. And I just thought, oh, fair play, just crack on, son. I personally like to use them. I'd rather protect the base of an expensive tent with a cheaper ground sheet, you know, that little bit more, and carry that extra bit of weight. That's, you know, everyone's different. Everyone's got their own preference. That's my preference. So I'll continue to use ground sheets. I don't really care if somebody doesn't like that. Well, fill your boots, whatever floats your boat. But that guy, back then, that guy came out with I've got 30 odd years experience in military and in the great outdoors and blah, 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 blah. Okay, just to put that one to bed, I got the same response from Nortent in this one. We have 35 years of experience of the great outdoors, both military and civilian, and da-da-da. Right, that literally means nothing. All right, just to put that out there, 35 years of experience means nothing. Okay, you can be doing this for 35 years, and if you've been doing it wrong for 35 years, you've still been doing it wrong. I've got 37 years experience of making scrambled eggs. Are they good scrambled eggs? Probably not, but I've been doing it for 37 years. It does not mean they're any good. Same with anything else. 35 years of experience of making tents. You haven't been selling them for that long. If you've been selling tents for 35 years and people are continually buying them, that kind of suggests you're doing something right to be going that long, to be sustainable. Having 35 years of experience and being in the tent market for just a handful of years, and then having problems and throwing the 35 years experience out there as the reason why you should be, you know, why you're right and other people are not right, is a nonsense, okay, frankly. As I say, if you've had 35 years of development, is a different thing. But 35 years experience, it's literally a nothing statement. And I love it when people chuck that one out there, because, like, I'm not impressed by that, and I think anybody with half a brain's not impressed by that. Better to listen when people are giving you feedback. I mean, I'm not the be-all and end-all of knowledge, like, far, far, far from it. Okay, I've learned a lot of stuff, and every day is still a school day when I'm outdoors and camping. There's always something new to learn, and I'm learning all the time, same as everybody else. Some people have learned more than me, some people haven't learned as much as me. That's just the way it is. Someone could be doing it less long and no more. That's how it works. So to say I've got this many years of experience, go away with that, it means nothing. it means nothing if they're not going to listen to feedback from people and then develop the weaknesses into strengths. And I personally think it's easy to do with the Vern1. I think, as I say, there's a lot I like about it, and I think it would be quite simple to actually improve the strength of that tent and make it a true 4-season tent. And it kind of is a 4-season tent, but if you're having to put poles on, it's a 3 and it's a white elephant. You know, it's I think it's a fairly easy fix. I genuinely do. I mean, yes, they've got to redesign the structure and whatnot, which I guess is not the simplest thing in the world. But if you've already got the original design, it shouldn't be that hard to change it, to tweak it. But yeah, so that was the big hoo-ha about the Nortent Vern1. I mean, I'm in two minds at the minute. I was thinking of shifting it on, and then the video came out and all this kicked off, and it's like, I'm going to take a big hit on this if I want to move it on now, because whereas if I'd have put it up for sale like a month ago, I'd probably have my hand snapped off. But it is what it is. I don't need to sell it, but I don't need to keep it because I've got other tents. But so part of us is kind of thinking, like, do I keep it and do I get it modified? Like, do I do the mods that I've suggested to Nortent and see how it turns out? I'm kind of tempted, you know, but I don't know. As I say, tonight I'm using the Nallo. I just picked this up this week, and as I say, I really like the space in here, especially if you're doing a multi-day trek, which is the Fjallraven Classic will be. You've got a lot of living room in here, especially, like, you know, if the weather's going to be bad, you might be stuck inside quite a lot on an evening or whatever. Better to have a bit of room to shift about than be sort of cramped up in a little one-man job. Yes, there's a weight penalty for that. It's with, like I say, with the big ground sheet, it's 2.8. I am thinking about getting just the vestibule ground sheet for this trip, and then that will probably drop a couple 100 grams off it. And I mean, another thought that occurred to us, I think I mentioned previously, is the I've got a Nordisk Holland 2 lightweight, which is that is like half the weight of this. The inner is 2 and a bit 100 grams lighter than this. So if I went for just the vestibule ground sheet and the Holland inner, which will fit in here, it's almost identical, including the clips. Well, the clip types are different, but they're in the same places. If I was to put that in here and see if that there, and so I've got this then down to about 2.35 or something like that, which is a lot less. I mean, to be honest, it just means I'll carry 300 or 400 grams of other shite, probably. That tends to be what happens. You know, my pack weight doesn't really change much, because if I save money, if I save weight in one place, I just add it with something else. That's kind of how I do stuff. And I'll never learn. I'll just carry on making the same mistakes in that respect, I guess. But lots to think about, lots of options. I mean, I'm not saying any of them will be any good. I'd have to make them first, but I have designed about 3 or 4. I've got about 3 or 4 tent designs that I've done that I think would be like so close to being my perfect tent, mine. What I don't have is the skills to turn them into a reality. Like, I cannot use a sewing machine to save my life. I've never made any clothes or anything like that, so, you know, it will probably turn out like an absolute nightmare if I try to pull it together and make it myself. But there's a part of us kind of there's one of them in particular that the part of us really wants to get made, because I do think it would be as near as damn it me perfect tent, genuinely. It certainly wouldn't be far off, but I don't know, I might look a bit more into that. I have been given information from someone as to a place I can send stuff to get it remade, so I might pursue that option, I might explore that a bit further. But that's where I am anyway. Like I say, this camp, I'm in the Nallo. Niall, my son, is out with us as well. He's trying out his Helm 1, that he just picked up recently. He's trying that out for the first time. He's thinking about using that one for the Fjällräven Classic, because he's doing that with us as well in August. I mean, the Helm ones are a cracking little tent, to be fair. They're you know, for what they are and for the cost of them. He picked it up second hand, so he got it pretty cheap, to be fair. For what he's paid for it, it's worth every penny. Like, I've had Helm 2s. I know people who've had Helm 1s, and I know they're a pretty solid tent. And at the price point, you cannot go far wrong. You really can't. The only thing with the Helm 1, it's a little bit too cramped for me, and especially for the long hikes. Like I say, if you're stuck inside for hours at a time on an evening in bad weather, there's just no room to move about for me. What, 3-4 inches taller than Niall, and a chunk wider as well, to be fair. So whereas his height and his build, he fits in that really quite nicely. It's a nice size for him. The only thing is you're limited on vestibule, but it's one of them. But then it does come in at, like, I think it's about 1.9 with the ground sheet, 1.7 without, something like that. So it's not a bad weight, to be fair. Packs down really small, all that. So there's a lot of good things about that tent. It's whether he's happy with that and whether he's going to want more space. Like I say, for me, I need more room. It's just the way I am. As I say, for a one-man tent, I thought the Vern1 has a nice amount of space. This has vastly more at the same sort of weight. I mean, even at a push, if I wanted to, potentially take the Solo with us, because I've got one of them as well. I don't know. There's decisions to be made, and there's plenty of time to make them. But so this is my first night out in the Nallo. It's my first night using my Thermarest neoair xtherm as well, with a higher R rating. So we'll see how that comes out. I did have a lie in the house the other night, and you can feel the warm coming back through off it. I was quite impressed by that. So see how that pans out tonight, because it's quite clear skies tonight, so it's a bit chilly out. Probably not going to drop below freezing, but it's not going to be a kick in the backside off it, I don't think. What else? As I say, my new backpack to try, and that's about it. I'm just going to start waffling again now, which I have done for the last 30 minutes, but that's a crack. I'll head off to sleep shortly, and it's what, 10 o'clock. I'm going to finish a brew I've got there, and then get my head down up early in the morning. I want to get the camp struck as early as I can, really, because I think it's going to be nice weather tomorrow, and this place will probably be rammed with people. It was pretty busy earlier on today. It's probably going to be the same script in the morning, so I'd rather get camp struck and then away before the crowds descend. So yeah, probably do a little bit in the morning. I'll do the walk around I said I was going to do today, I think, unless the weather turns crappy. I'll do the walk around the outside, and then we'll get it packed away and then bugger off till the next time. All packed away, had my breakfast. Just the tent to pack now. All the gear's done. Cracking days this morning. Lovely weather. There's Niall sorting his stuff out. Morning. We had a drop of rain about 3 this morning. Nothing significant, just a little bit. And the outside of the tent's dry. There's a little bit of condensation, but I'll do a quick walk around, and then we'll get the tent packed away and head off. It's just gone 7 o'clock, so try and get away sharp before people start coming up, as you do. That's a tent someone else who is also, I don't know if you can see a couple of lads over there, over here. There's another tent just down there, and then there's another 2 over the back of there. So there's quite a few people out last night. Thankfully it was quiet though, and no bad weather So yeah, I'll do a quick walk around of the tent and then I'll get it packed away and we'll head off back down there. So this is Hilleberg Nallo 2 in sand colour. It's red label Hilleberg, so it's like the middle one. Yellow label being the lightest ones, black label being the strongest ones and heaviest ones. So there's 14 guy out points, but then you have on the above the entrance door, is it 14? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Yeah, 14. But you get 16 pegs because there is 2 tabs on top of this vent, which I've added Hilleberg line to pull them out. Excuse me. Now, whilst I generally, with Hilleberg stuff, the quality is really good, so you tend to have nothing to fear. Because they're just little tabs on there, what I've done at the other end of the guy line, I've put bungee. I've got a line lock there. So line lock, and this is bungee. The reason I've done that is I saw a video a while back where a tarp tent, Scarp one I think it was, where it ripped, and there was a follow-up video from Henry Shire's a tarp tent where he was talking about if you get buffeted with wind, when the wind hits, if there's a lot of tension, you get like an instant hit on the material and that can cause a tear. Whereas if you can expand that hit over a period of time, even if it's just only slightly longer, you reduce the point loading in that instant. So by putting bungees on, it stretches that little bit in the wind, which takes a bit of the tension off these, but there's still tension to hold it out. So that's my rationale behind it anyway. Some other people out there might go, well, you know, that's bollocks, but we'll see. I was quite happy with it last night. As I say, there wasn't much wind at all. But you've got a huge vestibule here now. If you undo this tension band, if you like, you can actually shut the door, peg the door, and open the side. So this panel, you can roll that back and enter that way. And you can do the same on this side. So you've got options for getting in and out. The door, which is quite cool, you can either unzip there and roll it to the left, or unzip there and roll it to the right, or you can unzip it from the top, 1 or 2, and roll it down that way. So when you're sitting inside, if you want to catch a view, you just undo, that zip that way, and the door sort of folds down. You've got a nice little window there. Also handy when you're cooking inside the tent to reduce condensation. Now there is a little bit of condensation inside this morning, but I guess weather conditions are conducive to that. I mean, come around, I don't know if you can see it. I've had the tent open, so it's drying off. There, that's the condensation inside. So before I put it away, I'm going to drop the inner down, wipe the inside down, put the inner back up, get it home, and I'll get it in the garden and air it out if the weather's okay. Hopefully it is, or I'll hang it in the garage. So yeah, that's the Nallo 2. There's also a ventilation option at the back here. You can see this zip. Unzip this, and then this whole section here can roll back and clip onto these. So you've got an open window, a curved open window at the back to improve through ventilation. Inside the tent, it's massive. It's palatial, to be fair. The door, you can either have it solid or just the mesh if you wanted more ventilation through. Let's get inside there. You can see inside, you've got a pocket on this side, a pocket on that side, massive space. I mean, I was on one side last night and I was down here and I had my bag and kit down there, so you don't need to leave stuff in the vestibule. You've got the vent window at the back, you can open that to let more air through, and you've got a washing line in the ceiling. So that's the inside. As I say, it's massive, and I think it comes in without the footprint as it stands. It's going to be about 2.4 as it is, which I don't think is that bad for what it is, you know, the size of it and how strong it is. I'm more than happy with that. So I think that's going to be the tent I take on the Fjällräven, unless another tent comes along in the meantime that takes me fancy, which is always possible, being a complete tent nerd that I am. But yeah, so people ask why we do this. That's why we do this. And you go out for 6 months at a time in the clag and the crap weather, and then you get one like this. Makes it all worthwhile. Stunning. That's us done, all packed up. As usual, leave no trace. Just a flat patch in the grass where my fat horse was. One last look. Absolutely stunning. So that was the camp this weekend. There's some people who know where it is. I'm not going to say, but it's pretty obvious, I think, to most people. Well, yes, that's another one done. Back to Europe for 2 weeks now, and then I'll come back. I think I'm only back for a week, so I won't get out again then. Then back to Europe for another week. But then I'm back for 3, so I should have a bit of a chance to get out, do a bit more, putting down what I want to take in Sweden, practice with packing and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I'll try and get a couple of videos in the meantime, do some reviews of my rucksacks and my sleep mats or something like that, but there won't be any trips out for a few weeks anyway. So if you like the content, hit the like and subscribe, notification bell, and see you next time.